video. This video is your nutrition video, and it's going to be actually a 4-part series on transitioning to a plant-based diet. So this video is suitable for anybody who either wants to go completely plant-based, or if you just want to reduce your meat and dairy consumption, it will also be beneficial for you. It's going to be very informative. It's going to be using a lot of scientific studies and statistical studies and looking at a plant-based diet from many different points of view. So the first video, this video, part 1, is going to be looking at a general view of a plant-based diet from a view of your health, environment, as well as animal welfare. So a plant-based diet is a diet or lifestyle in which a person consumes only foods from plants such as vegetables, legumes, beans, nuts, whilst avoiding products from animals such as meat, dairy, fish and eggs. It also tends to include avoiding products such as honey, as well as meat or dairy derivatives such as gelatin, which can be found in some types of sweets. A plant-based diet can be beneficial for 3 main reasons, but there are other reasons as well. First reason, and this is the reason that drew me into eating a plant-based diet, is for health. There's increasing research being carried out on plant-based diets, and increasingly the evidence is showing that diets that are predominantly plant-based and contain whole foods and plant-based products are helping to prevent and delay the severity of common Western diseases. And in some cases, a plant-based diet has actually been shown to reverse these altogether. Specific benefits from studies that have been shown include a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes type 2, a reduced risk of ischemic heart disease, a reduced total cancer risk by 15%. Studies that have looked at athletic performance have found no change in comparison to plant-based or non-plant-based. This I consider also as a benefit because many people believe that maybe following a plant-based diet may cause them to be more tired and have a lack of energy, have a lack of strength, things like that. So actually showing that there is no difference between the 2 diets on athletic performance. So there are many reasons why a plant-based whole foods diet might be giving out these benefits. So some of those include a healthier gut microbiota. So this is something I've touched upon in a previous video, and I will link that below. It might also be causing reduced inflammation, lower triglycerides, reducing bile acids, elevated magnesium, increased metabolism, increased blood sugar control, and reduces cholesterol. Plant-based diet typically is high in vegetable consumption, which is associated with high levels of antioxidants, including polyphenols. Antioxidants have the ability to counteract oxidative stress from free radicals, and this may be one reason for the benefits shown in these studies. Polyphenols from plant-based foods including fruit and vegetables, whole grains, nuts, tea and coffee have been demonstrated to influence glycemia, insulin resistance and inflammation beneficially. This type of diet typically has less refined carbohydrates and sugars and tends to be higher in whole grains, which have a low glycemic effect. The high fibrous diets can influence your gut bacteria, providing further health benefit. It's naturally low in saturated fat, which can improve lipid metabolism. The dishes that we tend to include in a whole foods plant-based diet tend to have a lot of herbs and spices, which also come with their own benefits. All of these benefits together have been shown to help to prevent metabolic syndrome. So the NHS supports and recognises a plant-based diet as a healthy way of living. It encourages a balanced, healthy diet to ensure the body consumes all of the nutrients it needs. It also supports a plant-based diet during pregnancy and lactation, as long as the individual is aware of the nutrients that they need to consume to have a healthy pregnancy. The NHS and Public Health England are well supportive of a reduced animal product intake, and they specifically focus on the processed meats reduction, as this is already associated with bowel cancer. So this is great news because it means that we have a preventative treatment for many of the common Western diseases that plague our society. Many of the diseases that I already mentioned are probably known to you through a parent or grandparent having them, and this gives us a way to change our diet so that we are able to prevent ourselves from going on and experiencing the same troubles as they experience. It's a preventative measure that's inexpensive, doesn't involve any chemicals, it's accessible to all people, and it rivals the effects of those pharmaceutical drugs, as well as looking at it from an NHS Public Health England point of view. I think it's really important to also see what other countries are doing. So I'll place the Canada healthy eating plate here, and they've actually removed dairy completely from their plate. It has a protein section as opposed to a meat and fish section, which does contain animal products, but it also contains plant-based sources as well. And the amount of animal products that are shown on this plate only consists to about 10% of the plate, and the rest of it comes from a plant-based source. So moving on to reason number 2, and this is the environment. As a whole world, we're facing challenges such as growing population, urbanization, increased life expectancies, more food waste, overconsumption, increased demand for meat and animal protein. The environmental implications of this are climate changes. It's a drain on the natural resources, and ultimately it results in a decline of food yields when we are ever needing more food in this world. The health implications of our current lifestyles that we are collectively living in comparison to the history of our species, including overconsumption and increased demand for meat, are dramatically increasing obesity and increasing chronic diseases. So when we're looking at statistics, the environmental impact specifically from the food system, we can see that 80% of agricultural land is being used only for livestock, and this accounts for 70% of the water usage as well. So according to the NHS Eat Well guide, meat and dairy consumption should be about 30% of our diet if we choose to eat meat and dairy. So the fact that 80% of our land is being used to only make 30% of what we should be consuming is a complete disconnect. It means that our food production system is disproportionate to what our diet should be. 18% of greenhouse gases come from livestock, and when combined with the transport, the water usage and the cost of deforestation, that actually goes up to an estimated 50%. If we continue consuming the same amount of animal products, the increase in demand will result in 14% more deforestation by 2050, and you can see that it's only going to get worse and worse from there. So we know as a population that something needs to change. Climate change is really important because a rise in the greenhouse gas emissions could cause global temperatures to increase by 2 degrees. And this is a bad thing. This will cause increased flooding, droughts in other areas, hurricanes and tropical storms, natural disasters, and ultimately it will result in a loss of biodiversity and damaging agriculture and ultimately our health. We are part of this world. We're not something separate from it. We can put barriers up around ourselves for so long, but eventually the world will become too uninhabitable for humans to live in. So thinking more on a positive side, a global reduction in meat intake could reduce the emissions related to agriculture by 55% due to the fact that livestock production is one of the biggest culprits. Pause the video here just to take a look at this graph of livestock's contribution to climate change and the annual global greenhouse gas emissions from food productions rising from 2010 to 2014. This is a more in-depth graph that shows land use, water consumption and emissions from specific types of foods, comparing plant-based to animal-based on the right. This is per million kilocalories consumed, and you can see that animal-based are generally a lot higher, especially beef. This graph shows the dietary greenhouse gas emissions of people who are vegan compared to people who eat meat and all those in between. You can see that the lower amount of meat consumption, the lower the greenhouse gas emissions are. And the last graph I have for you today is showing the plant-based versus animal-based protein consumption. And this is looking at different countries, so it's actually quite interesting to see that most countries are consuming more protein than necessary, regardless of whether it's plant or animal protein, and actually most countries are consuming most of their daily requirements as plant protein already, showing that we have a lot of room to reduce our animal protein consumption without actually having to replace much of that with plant-based protein. So therefore we can see that diets need to change. It's more than just a personal life choice. Studies have found that plant-based diet patterns, combined with a low consumption of processed and packaged foods and that follow the recommended caloric consumption, have the lowest environmental impact. You're welcome to pause the video here to see what exactly is a sustainable diet, but in general they are diets with low environmental impacts which contribute to food and nutrition security and to healthy life for present and future generations. So here are some tips to achieve a sustainable diet. Most of these I will be covering in the further 3 parts of the Transitioning to Plant-Based Diet series, but if you'd like you can quickly take a screenshot of this now and save it to your phone. Most of these informational resources I have got from Oatly. You can always head over to their website, they've got a lot of great information on there, and I will also be including all of the resources down below if you are interested in looking into these further. So it's possible to see that by having a diet that is either fully plant-based or closer to that of a plant-based diet is not only important to individual human health, but it's important to every individual on the planet, every animal on the planet, and the planet itself. And that brings me on to the third reason. So the third reason is animal welfare. I've left this one last because it's quite a controversial topic. The health and the environment are very well studied, very scientific based, but with animal welfare there's a lot of differing opinions on how animals should be treated. So I'm not going to get too much into this, but I do want to say that we should be considering how ethical it is to consume animals and animal products when the production that goes into making these foods causes pain and suffering to these animals. How ethical is it to continue eating these animals when you have a healthier option, an option that's better for the environment and better for the whole planet, and a cheap and affordable option when you could eat that? How ethical is it to continue supporting a system of suffering? Is there pain and suffering worth it for you to just have a tasty meal? And that brings me to the end of part 1 of this Transitioning to a Plant-Based Diet workshop series. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some beneficial information from it. I will link a written version of this workshop below, and that will include some of the studies and the information sources that I have used and spoken about in this video. So thank you for watching, and I will see you again soon in the next video.